All right, welcome to the SnydeReport. I am your host, Gary Snyder. With me tonight are two Indiana Democratic legends here in the state of Indiana. First of all, we have two-term U.S. Senator, two-term Governor Evan Bayh. And then also tonight, we have former U.S. Senator, former ambassador to the Vatican, Joe Donnelly. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. It's good to be here with my friend Joe, who I should point out is the most recent statewide winner in our party. So maybe we should listen to him. But I'm looking at the Christmas stuff you got there behind you. Is this to suggest that Christmas came early for Democrats yesterday?
Boy, it seems like it. It seems like it. And I've told this story, and I'm going to tell it again, and I'm getting the evil eye from my wife over there, that as soon as September 1 hits, all the fall stuff goes up, and the kids aren't even out of their Halloween costumes, and they are putting the Christmas stuff up as of November 1st. So that's, you get winter wonderland. My wife even made me the hot chocolate tonight.
Wow.
So I've got it made. The fire's going. It's windy and a little chilly out.
And you're out in the countryside in Northeast Indiana. So
I
pretty
am.
good.
Well, for your sake, I hope you have a little something in that cocoa to really warm you up.
Yeah, marshmallow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to bring both of you guys on tonight simply because, it builds my ego a little bit. We had an election yesterday that Democrats did very, very well with. And, my concern is with this is that maybe some people start reading it the wrong way, but we'll start with you, Evan. Your thoughts on what happened yesterday across, New York City, New Jersey, Virginia, and California.
Well, it was a great night for Democrats, period, full stop. We won the mayor's race in the nation's largest city. We won 2 governor's races, including in Virginia, where there was a Republican as the current governor. And then, of course, in California, that is going to allow them to offset some of the things, although I'm not for the redistricting, but they did pass it overwhelmingly out there in California. But I think the real question here, so it was a great night for Democrats, but the question is, what's the lesson in that for all the rest of us in other parts of the country? And I hope we don't draw the wrong lesson. And I'll be interested in what my friend Joe has to say. But you look at, Virginia and New Jersey are slightly blue states.
Right.
Our state is an 18-point margin Republican state. So it's just a different place than those 2 electorates. New York City, along with San Francisco and, maybe Massachusetts, Boston, the most democratic city in the United States of America. And the winner, you got to tip your cap to him. Anytime somebody in their 30s wins the mayor's race to become mayor of the largest city in the country, well, good for him. But he got 50% of the vote. He didn't get 60 or 70 or that kind of thing. He got 50% in a very, very progressive area. So, and the 2 candidates who won the governor's races, they were both moderate members of Congress. So I just think in our state, and I'll cut to the chase and I'll turn it over to Joe here. I think the real question is those working class voters that we need in Indiana, those kitchen table issues. The word of the day is affordability. And what that really means is the price of your electric bill, how much are your groceries costing, what's the price of your health care, those things that really strain the budget of ordinary people. What are we going to do about that? And I don't think that most Hoosiers would think socialism is the answer. They think reforming the current system that we got, and particularly in our state house, doing a better job of husbanding our resources and putting into things that really matter to people, rather than calling special sessions of the legislature to redistrict,
right,
is probably the thing to do. So great night for Democrats. We just can't draw the wrong lesson for us here at home in Indiana. We got to focus like a laser on those kitchen table issues that really matter to working class folks.
Yeah, we are a big tent, our party. And the Democratic Party is a little bit different in different places. In New York City, it's different than Indiana. Indiana is different than Illinois. And I think, as Evan said, for us here, it's about making sure that there's food on the table, that there's good jobs that are available. I remember when Evan was governor, 21st Century Scholars, one of the best educational programs you could ever dream of. And what we see these recent years is the educational level going down. And so when we focus on these things, when we focus on making sure there's good jobs, that there's good education, that in healthcare, that we help provide affordable healthcare. I think one of the most outrageous things about the tax cuts was that the funds that went to Elon Musk and his buddies is the same money that would have been used to help pay for the subsidies
Hmm.
for healthcare. And so I think that in part, the Republicans lost the narrative. President Trump lost the narrative of how he got there. And he was talking about affordability and standing up for the little guy. And that's not what's going on right now. But that's who we are in Indiana as Democrats. And as Evan said, we got to focus like a laser on working class, on our union friends, on making sure we put our coalition back together and we can have success.
When and you both talked about getting the right candidates. You can take almost any Republican now, put them in any red state, and they're all going to look the same, talk the same. With Democrats, you have Mandani in New York City. You probably could not put him in New Jersey or Virginia to win, and vice versa. You probably couldn't put Spanberger or Sherrill in New York City, and they would have won. So when you talk about a big tent, that is true, but you also need to make sure you have the right candidates
Right.
in the right places. And I'll start with you, Joe.
Well, and I'll start with somebody who is a great friend to Hoosiers all across the state, is Bo Bayh. And obviously, Evan is on this. But that's not why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because he's a young man who stepped up, who has served his country, who has done public service after that as well. And that's who we are as Democrats, is standing up for the little person, for the little guy, the woman who is a single mom and trying to make ends meet. That's who Bo's trying to talk to. And as Secretary of State, he'll tend to the job as opposed to becoming a world traveler with a lot of frequent flyer miles as the current person. And so when we have candidates like that, look, Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, these are folks who work for the CIA. These are folks who worked in national security, moderate creds. That's who Hoosiers expect. When Hoosiers see us as that, we have great success.
And Evan, when you look at Mandani and you look at Spanberger and Sherrill, they all had the same message. They might have said it a little differently, but it was affordability. In New Jersey, I'm going to freeze your utility bills. We're going to work on groceries. We're going to make sure you get health care. Is that the message that needs to be going forward? Because they try, at least in Virginia, you could, from what I understand, you couldn't go 30 seconds without seeing an ad about wokeism, and that just was completely ignored by the electorate there.
Well, I think it resonates with about 40% of the electorate that we're not going to compete and get anyway. I mean, we can talk about the whole transgender sports thing and all that, which is already against the law in Indiana and has been against the law for a few years. So why that's relevant right now, God only knows. But for your average Hoosier out there, it's the things that resonate in their daily lives, not some of this, you know, off the wall cultural stuff. It's what's going to matter, to help them make ends meet or their family budget. What about retirement security? What about a decent job and job security? Those kind of things. And so we got to just focus on the middle class and the issues that matter to them. And I think what you see is that maybe some of these red meat kind of social issues that the Republicans use from time to time to divert people's attention away from the things that matter in their daily lives weren't quite as effective yesterday. And first of all, thank Joe for saying nice things about my son. I think they also happen to be true. And one of the things that we're seeing in our state right now with the one party controlling everything, I mean, when you have a monopoly in the economy, what do? You get lower quality products and you get higher prices. Consumers get gouged. Monopolies don't work for people. Same thing in politics. When you have a monopoly, there's no competition. There's no accountability. And one of the things Bo is running on is saying, look at what the current office holder here has done. $1,000 luxury SUV for himself, hiring his brother-in-law for a six-figure salary, and then giving a bonus on top of that, traveling to the far ends of the world and won't tell people who, paid for the thing. No bid contracts for his largest campaign donors. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on and on. I mean, enough already. This is what happens when there's no accountability. So it's time for, to sweep out, sweep the place out. It's time to hold the powers that be, the special interests, these inside power brokers who think they're running our government for themselves, and say, no, we're running it for the people. As Joe was saying, for the average man and woman, for the average, the small business person, the independent farmer, the factory worker, people out there who can't afford the high paid lobbyists in the state house. That's who we need to represent. And that's who Bo's running to represent. And that's what the Democratic Party has historically stood for. And I think the thing we need to correct, and, New York City and New Jersey and Virginia, they're all kind of different. But, in my travels across the state, I find a lot of people, Joe down south. We used to do well in Southern Indiana Democrats, a little more conservative, union members in some places now have kind of, not been with us all the time. And one of the things that they think is that when they think about national Democrats, not Indiana Democrats, but national Democrats, they think about these national Democrats, they think they're a little elitist, a little condescending, a little know-it-all, and that just won't wash. You got to communicate with people with respect and dignity and say, I'm one of you, I'm here for you, I'm fighting for you, and forget these folks on the coasts. We got to be Indiana Democrats. If we do that, I think we'll do just fine.
Can both of you hold through a quick break?
Sure.
You're listening to the Snide Report. I'm your host, Gary Snyder.
Fort Wayne's national award-winning Top Haunt to open now through the first weekend of November with Blackout the last weekend, but you will save time and money buying the RSVP timed tickets online. Hysterium.com.
All right, this is the part of the Snide Report where we thank our sponsors, and we have a growing list. So let's start with Robin Winston. Robin has been there when we first sent out our first email, 147 subscribers. We're now over 108,000. So thank you, Robin Winston, and helping us get the podcast going in the right direction. Next up is our good friend, former Congresswoman Jill Long Thompson. Her book, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America. Get that anywhere you buy your books. Also, former two-term governor, two-term U.S. Senator Evan Bayh. Evan has been a sponsor of the newsletter, now jumps on board with the podcast. Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman Carson has been there from the start. We're glad to have him over here on the newsletter now. He needs your help to win re-election next year. So make sure you support Congressman Carson. Next up, State Representative Cherish Pryor. Cherish has been there from the start on the newsletter, joining us on the podcast now. So is State Senator Greg Taylor. I want to thank Senator Taylor for all of his support through the years. Next, we have a couple of new sponsors. First up is Indiana Citizen. You want to check out their new project, One Heartbeat Away. Do Christian nationalists have an agenda for Indiana? All you have to do is look at the lieutenant governorship and you can see right away that they do. So thank you, Indiana Citizen. Next up is Jump Laundry. You can visit them at jumplaundry.com. They have home pickup. They do your dry cleaning, wash and fold with, I might add, no judgments, and next day service. So if you're in a crunch for time, you don't want to do your own laundry, get a hold of Jump Laundry at jumplaundry.com or at 317-740-5011. And they will take care of all of your laundry needs.
Washington politicians came to Indiana to get us to cheat and redraw our legislative maps. They want you to spend millions so they can rig the system and silence your voice. Hoosiers play fair. We don't need their meddling. We need our elected officials focusing on what we need most, making our lives better, lowering taxes, and bringing down the cost of energy and groceries. So tell your legislators, don't let Washington insiders rig our elections. Solve real problems and earn our votes.
Welcome back to the Snide Report. I am your host, Gary Snyder. With me tonight is former governor and U.S. Senator Evan Bayh and former U.S. Senator, I should throw congressman in there too, because that looks good on a resume, and also ambassador to the Vatican, Joe Donnelly. You were talking a little bit about Diego before we went to the break, and I saw a story this morning in this publication called the SnydeReport that goes out to about 110,000 people. He tried to enter a polling place yesterday, and he wasn't recognized and was turned away.
Huh. He didn't have his voter ID?
I guess not. So I thought that was kind of a funny. Now they ended up letting him in. Apparently, maybe they had to do, some kind of phone calls. But yeah, they finally were convinced that he was actually the secretary. Maybe they showed him a picture of his $90,000 SUV, because that's probably more famous than him. When we talked about getting the right candidate in the right place. How important is that in Indiana too, both statewide and at maybe a legislative level? Because when we look at candidates in Indiana right now, mayors are winning. We have more people under Democrat leadership in cities than I think most of the state combined. And how important is it that we get someone that is more of a moderate at a statewide level? Because, we have some people already screaming out there that we need a candidate like Donnelly to run for Secretary of State or for governor in 3 years, or, you can go down the line. So how important is it to get that right candidate in the right spot? Because a Democrat maybe here in Huntington maybe is not the right candidate, the right type of Democrat to run in Bloomington, or, one of the Democrat strongholds across Indiana, and vice versa. We'll start with you, Evan.
Well, I don't know about you, Gary, but I'm tired of losing. And unless you win elections, you're not in a position to actually help anybody. That's just the fact of it. And so we have to ask ourselves, are we in this to just have our say and have a platform of some kind, or are we actually in it to win so we can be in a position to do the things we're talking about here? Help with healthcare, help with education, help with the environment, help with the economy, all those sorts of things. And I'm ready to win again so we can be about the business of governing again. Now, how do you go about doing that? Well, you don't make it an ideological contest. Our state is about 2-to-1 conservative to progressive.
Right.
The way for the progressives to win, Democrats can win, but you don't make it an ideological contest. You make common cause, progressives and moderates together. Nobody's going to get everything they want, but you make it a practical choice, not an ideological. What is actually going to improve education? What is actually going to get the cost of utility bills down? How are we actually going to fill our roads? There's no conservative or liberal way to fix roads.
That's right.
You just got to do it. And so forget the ideology. Make it about practical progress. So that's number one. Number two, as I said, there are 18% more Republicans in Indiana than there are Democrats. Now, math is not my strong suit, but when you're starting off 18% behind the 8-ball there, you got some work to do. And so you got to reach out to the independents. And from what I can tell, I'll tell you what, a day does not pass when some moderate Republican, comes up to Bo or texts Bo or reaches out to me and says, you know what? I know we can do better. I'm glad you're running, because we know that what we have in the state house right now is not good enough. And that's how you win, by, first of all, not making it about ideology, making it about practical progress. And secondly, not dividing R versus D, but instead bringing people together, Democrats, independents, and sensible Republicans all together to move the state forward together. That's how you win. And I hope that's what we're about after all these years in the wilderness. It's about time.
And I know Evan used to say the same thing as I did when I was talking to people, and they said, "Oh, you're the Democratic senator." I said, "No, I'm your senator. I'm not.
Right.
I ran on a Democratic ticket, and then I was elected, and now I'm your senator. And so, if it's good for you and good for Indiana, then I'm for it. My job isn't to work for any president; it's to work with a president who has good ideas for Indiana. I think of who we are, and what Evan says is exactly correct. That look, on a regular day, we're underwater by a significant amount. So we have to get independents with us, moderate Republicans. We have to put a coalition together. And I used to say whether I was in Bloomington or whether I was in the most conservative county in the state, I said, look, I probably won't do 100% of what you want, but you'll get 70% of something as opposed to 100% of nothing.
Mhm.
And that's how we make this country go forward. That's how we make this party go forward, is that we work together and reach out to everybody. I can promise you, when Evan or I, when we were Senator Evan or Senator Joe, we won. When we were the Democratic senator, and that's the only thing they thought about, we were in trouble. And so our job was always to try to do what was right, but at the same time, reach out to everybody. I think of our soybean farmers right now. Um, and I'm not trying to be cute with this, but the fact is, I was on the ag committee for 3 terms in the House, a term in the Senate. So all 12 years, farmers did extraordinarily well. I mean, they did pretty well for themselves over those years, and they worked hard and they earned it and they deserved it. This is the second time we've seen this president create tariffs with China where our soybean farmers are upside down on every bushel that they grow. And so who's with you and who's not? We'll be with you in the good and the bad.
I've had some pretty well-known guests on here, and I'm going to include Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott because I think he started this conversation that leads to my next question. Do you want to be right or do you want to win? Beto and Colin Allred, they had the same message, and then Governor Beshear from Kentucky told me, we also we gotta focus on how we talk to people.
Yep.
And so when I listen to that advice, is it sage advice? And I'll start with Joe.
Look, we work for the people of Indiana. They're our boss. And so we have to listen. That's what this job is about, is listening to what their hopes and dreams are and trying to make them come true. And, you can't, of course, every single time you listen, and then you try to make the right decision on the facts that you know. And so you can't get an opportunity to do something if you don't win. That's first and foremost. And then if you have to make a decision that you know is good for the country, but is probably not the most popular, you try to do what's right for the country and then explain it. And every time I explained it, the people always understood. They get it because they love their country so much. And so our job is to try to make sure we're talking to all Hoosiers. And if we're not going to have any luck.
Gary, government is serious business. We affect people's lives each and every day. It's not a political science classroom. It's not an editorial board meeting. It's not some chat room where you can just spout off and take extremist positions and absolutist positions because it doesn't matter to anybody. Government matters. It affects people's health care, our children's education, the quality of our economy, and national security. So damn right, it's important that we win, because when we lose, and we lose for 20 straight years in our state, there are consequences for that. So as Democrats, we have to ask ourselves, and there are some people in our party who say, it's, as Joe said in his successful Senate race, his opponent said, my way or the highway, right? Well, we got people in our party like that too. 100% or nothing. If they can't get 100% of everything they want, then they want nothing. And nothing is what we've had. The problem with that is that hurts people. And so we have to ask ourselves, isn't 80% of better healthcare better than nothing? 70% better schools better than nothing? And so we have to come together and resolve our differences so that we can win and put ourselves in a position to actually do something about the people that we claim to want to help. And I'm just afraid that too many people in our party just take the my way or the highway, all or nothing attitude. And I don't think the people of Indiana can afford to settle for nothing anymore. So yes, we exist to try and win because we exist to try and help people. You can't help people unless you win.
And I'll say one other thing. Our job has always been to try to make sure that we leave for our kids and our grandkids an even better America than we were able to inherit from our parents. And you can't do that, as Evan said, unless you win. I think of healthcare and the Affordable Care Act. And I think of being at an event where a mom came up to me and said, I had triplets. They were born at 6 months. For 3 months, they were in a neonatal intensive care unit. $5 million healthcare bill. She said, without the ACA, I don't know what we would have done. That's real progress. We were able to get that done. People wanted even more. We couldn't get that far, but we sure got a long way that helped change lives.
There was some guy on the internet the other day attacking me. Why I look at this stuff, I don't know. It's not good for my mental.
It's not healthy.
He started off attacking my father. He said, Birch Bride brought us the Civil Rights Act. Evan Bride brought us the Affordable Care Act. God only knows what Bo Bayh is going to do. Well, God willing, it will be something as good as the Civil Rights Act and the Affordable Care Act.
I was going to say he's got a pretty good
in our
legacy
country,
to
I
live
mean,
up
think
to.
about it. In our country, when someone had a pre-existing condition, when they'd been sick,
Yeah.
they couldn't get health care. If you got real sick, they had something called a lifetime cap. They dropped your coverage. You got cancer, they dropped your coverage. You had a heart attack, they dropped your coverage. Well, we did away with that so that people could get covered. It's not perfect. It needs to be improved. But I thought to myself, Jesus, he wants to refight the Civil Rights Act. But apparently the guy doesn't realize that now the Affordable Care Act, even in a state like ours, is 2-to-1 positive because people realize we need to do a better job of providing quality, affordable health care. Now we got to get the cost down.
Well,
Focus on that. But one last thing I'd say, Gary, what is it? And Joe, maybe you got an opinion about this. What is it about politics that it's the only kind of human experience where people expect to get everything they want and not compromise at all? I was happily married for 35 years. You guys are happily married today. You're lucky men. No marriage can survive that way. Nobody gets everything they want. How about a PTA or a business or a civic organization? There's no other part of life where people are unwilling to get together and compromise. That doesn't mean you sell out your ideals and your principles, but that means you understand going in, nobody gets everything they want. And yet in politics, and there are some elements even in our own party, it's, if we don't get everything we want, we're taking our ball and going home. And by the way, if you compromise to make progress, well, then you're a traitor. You're a sellout. You're regrettably in a pluralistic society. If we're not willing to compromise, we're not going to go forward together.
President Obama, President Biden, President Bush, they all compromised a significant amount. The progress that was made was incredible, in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of so many things. I used to see Evan and Richard Lugar and in picking judges. It was unbelievably successful in picking good people into good slots because you respected one another. And you see judges now are like knife fights, confirmation. And it's a sad thing because look, there's folks on the other side that have great ideas as well. Because they're not on the other side, they're Hoosiers too. We're all in this together.
well,
Gary, last thing I'd mark my words. There are a lot of Republicans out there who are willing to come over our way. They don't expect us to become Republicans, but they expect us to be decent human beings. And they know that what we have right now, we can do better. If we just run in practical issues, sensible people, candidates who are articulate, intelligent, we're going to get some Republicans coming over because they know what we currently have is not right.
Yeah, the people of Indiana know, they need to know, and they do know. We have their backs. Like for Bo, not to repeat again, but Bo has their backs. He's a 7th generation Hoosier. He knows the good times and the bad times that his family has had in Cherokseeville. I mean, that's human life. Every family has a good year, a bad year, and we'll be with him through both.
Before I get to my last question for both of you, I just want to say Birch Bayh helped make America fair. Evan Bayh and Joe Donnelly made sure that people could actually get health care. That's a good thing. My last question to both of you. With the election results yesterday, the momentum's got to keep going for another year. But we were talking a little bit about redistricting. They're going to start the session on December 1st, I believe, and consider redistricting here in Indiana and wiping out, our only minority district in Indianapolis. Does last night's results, does it make it more likely, less likely, or no difference that they do a mid redistricting here?
I'll say that our legislators know in their heart. You know how you know in your gut something.
Mhm.
They know this is wrong, and it's also against our state constitution. So if they vote for this, they're violating their constitutional oath they made to the state of Indiana. Mitch Daniels has said this is wrong. Sue Ellspermann has said this is wrong. This is not. There's the overwhelming number of folks in our state. No, this is not right. And so I have faith that our legislators are going to look at this. They're going to do the right thing and say, that's not who we are.
Evan, can
Yeah,
they
Gary,
turn back that phone call from Donald Trump that is coming?
well, it'll take some courage, Gary. And there was a book John Kennedy wrote called Profiles in Courage, and there's a reason there hasn't been a sequel. There's not a lot of that going around. But I hope enough of them will. The senators are elected, only half of them are coming up next year, and they've been threatened with primary opponents and so forth. But I hope enough of them have enough backbone and think first and foremost about their character and their integrity as opposed to threats about an election. So I don't think yesterday was going to have much of an impact on that. I think that some of them will cave into those kind of threats. Hopefully a majority won't. But I'll tell you what, this whole thing, I believe, is going to be a loser for them. And the reason for that is not because your average citizen, out there in the street cares about redistricting. It's sort of some sort of a theoretical concept of some kind, but it's a metaphor for what's wrong with our politics. They call an emergency session of the state legislature an emergency to deal with what? Electricity prices?
Mm.
No. Grocery prices?
Nope.
No. Healthcare costs? No. Better roads? No.
No, I'll
More
help you
job
out.
security, better wages? No. The most important priority they've got is an inside political deal to try and jerry-rig the political maps in the state. And that shows how out of touch with the average person they are. And
Right.
so I think we should just, if they don't do it, which I hope they don't, good. We all dodged a bullet, and we should salute the people who had the courage to stand up and vote no. If they go forward with it, make them own it and tell the people of Indiana, is that what you want? The people who care mostly about themselves and their own political welfare? We stand for you.
There you go.
Any final thoughts, Joe?
Yes, I need my mantle on my fireplace to look half as good as yours in the next month.
We have 20, is it 20 stockings up there. So
Wow.
that is me, my 7 children, 3 son-in-laws, and 8 grandchildren.
I have a friend
And
of
a
mine.
wife.
I have a friend of mine. His mom.
Don't forget
My
that.
wife's going over there going, what the hell about me?
My friend is one of 17 that he grew up in on a farm. And they had 2 houses. When you got to high school, you moved over to the other house. And he was a Notre Dame student. Like a month into the semester, he called his mom to say hello. And she said, why don't you come on over for dinner? He said, well, I'm in Indiana. I'm 5 states away, Mom. She had no idea he left a month before.
So Gary, how big a turkey do you guys have to get, or do you have to get 2 turkeys?
We get 2. Yeah, we have so many at my mom's house on Christmas now. She's I think banned some of us on Christmas Day, and we split it up over 2 days because it's just too big of a.
So Evan, with 7 kids, we have to work hard to make his ratings continue to go up. So
I was going to say, let's pass the hat for Gary and the extended family here.
We have 2 left at home. We have a daughter that's living with us. She is actually up from a graduate of St. Mary's College up your way, Joe.
Yeah.
So we have 2 Purdue, one St. Mary's. So
we are all so blessed. And Evan, we were all so blessed to have Susan in our lives for so long.
Yeah,
Just
thank you.
unbelievable, I told Bo the other day when I was in Terre Haute with him, I said, I love your dad, but we all loved your mom even more.
Yeah. Well, I hear all the time, Joe, that people used to vote for Susan's husband. So
That's right.
she was the greatest blessing of my life. No question about it. Thank you for your kind words.
I thought about calling this Pepper's husband's podcast.
Huh.
Well, thank you, both of you. Joe Donnelly, thank you. Evan Bayh, thank you. I am Gary Snyder. They are not. They are Evan Bayh and Joe Donnelly. This is the Snide Report, and we are out.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.